We're working on painting faces, but before I start painting, I like to do some pretty complete drawings. My first step was to do a contour drawing just to get the feeling of the pieces of the face, and I didn't do her nearly the justice that she needs. And I think some of you guys also felt like you ended up with a pretty masculine looking picture, which I did too. So this was my contour drawing, but my next step on this now is going to be to do a more complete drawing. And we'll just move this into my page here. Get me set up where you're going to see it. I'm going to put her off to the side. You probably can't see all of that. And actually, I want it over here. I want it right there. What I want to do is sort of take you through this somewhat step by step of doing a completed drawing where I really work. What I want to find is really the real shape of her face, you know, how long her head is versus how wide it is, whether her eyes are really in the center or if they're off a little bit. And then her nose is her nose. If we do the top of the eyebrows, her nose is halfway down. And so breaking this into some of those pieces, seeing some of these triangles, and making sure that I'm really getting her facial features lined up where they need to be. So I'm going to be much more careful about that part of it. And then this whole thing of, you know, well, what is the shape of the oval of her face? And I'm drawing it on a piece of paper that's the size that I'm going to paint. So I'm actually going to do it just a little bit bigger than what she is. And because I'm going to be doing all of these measurements, I'm going to start with the shape of her head before I do the facial features. And then that way I can place all of that and I can get about the size I want this head to be on the paper. And let's just look at one thing, and that is how wide versus how high. So if I measure, and let's just do it with the pencil, that her width is about 1.5 times, her height is about 1.5 times the width of her face. So if the width of her face, and she's got a little bit more, you see less of her face on the right side than you do on the left side of this photograph. It's actually the opposite on her face, but that's okay. So now if that is that width, then we want this to be 1.5 times this. So her chin should come down to about here. And she's got a little more shape over here, so this side comes out a little bit more. Her chin comes back in here, and then the neck comes off of this. The neck comes off of down in here. Actually, that neck's a little further. And then her chin overlaps. Her start of her collar is just barely overlapping that chin. And that comes out a little bit more here. Now her head comes down, shapes around, and then her center of her faceplate it's about 1/3, slightly more than 1/3 over here. So it's her nose is going to come down into this line here, and remember it curves very slightly, and it looks like to me that it goes back that way slightly, like she's got her head turned just a little bit. Her eyes are at halfway point, so make sure we're about halfway here. I don't bother with a ruler here, I just use my pencil, and because everything is relative. Now her eyes are not straight to the edge, they're just slightly turned down because her head is slightly turned back that way. So her eyes are slightly turned back. And remember her faceplate, so now, you know, it's these triangles, her eyes here, and one other thing, her eye. Remember the eyes Yep, she's got a full eye width between her eyes. She has half an eye width out to there. She's got a full eye width out to the hair, and then another half out beyond. At this point, we're trying to be much more concise than we were when, and here's another measurement. So eye width, and so the top of her eyebrow, is about an eye width up. So the top of the eyebrow is right up in there. And then it comes down, finds this shape inside her eye. So that's the top of the eyebrow. This is the bottom of the eyebrow, and then it turns and comes back down here. Now her eyes, what kind of shape does she have for her eyes? Some people have very round eyes, some people are very almond shaped. And there's more height to the eye above than below, but there's a little curve right here. This comes out almost straight. I'm not going to finish anything yet. We're going to try and get all the pertinent details in here. Now, one of the things that when I did the contour drawing I saw is that she's got a little high spot right there in her eye. So we want to catch that. And then on the bottom of her eye here, there's a little thickness to her eyelid. So you can actually see that. And then there's a line that comes off, and then this shape that goes around the eye that is the eye socket. Now there's a couple little wrinkles that come off here. That, like the eye goes and then turns and comes out a little bit. Same with this other end. And then you can see into the eyelid right there. And then this part of the eyelid comes close to the eye. And then the other eyebrow is at the same point. Now, some people, one of their eyes is higher than the others. So you always have to look at this and see, and then the shadow on her eye, her nose bridge comes right down this center line. And now we had decided when I looked at this that if I measured from the top of the eyebrow to the end of the nose, from the end of the nose, let's go for the point of the nose, not the very end point of the nose, that's halfway. Okay, so I'm going to break this from the eyebrows. So that's going to go halfway. That's going to be, her nose is right there. I'd guessed it pretty close. And then another thing, if I drop a line from the ends of her eyes, if I drop a line from the ends of her eyes, that's how wide that nose is. And then her nose actually comes down here just a little bit further with the sort of the tip of it, but the end of the nose is right there. So she doesn't have a really big nose. Some people have much bigger noses. So it's one of the variations. And then if we break this in half, where is my halfway? Bottom of her lip or the break of her lip? It's the bottom of the lip. Okay, so the halfway point is the bottom of the lip. So then her mouth is above this. And then the width of the mouth, remember we had this triangle. Edge of the eye, out at the edge of the eye pocket, edge of the eye pocket, down to here. Edge of the eye pocket, which is out here just a little bit, run that down. And then that should be about the width of her mouth. And we've got this over here, so that's working out properly. And now her mouth has a little bit of a tilt to it. She's got a little bit of a tilt. And then it comes out small, and then this goes down to here. There's just a little tiny bit of a dip at the, oh, I should know what all the name of these pieces are, but this little part of our lip that has a indentation on it, it comes into the lip, and depending on how deep that little indentation is, will determine how deep that cut, that little mark is. Getting the basic pieces in here. I'm not worrying about details yet. We're going to work on details as we go. So let's get her irises. Now, eyeballs, because we have eyelids that are covering over the eyeballs, you rarely can see the entire iris. It's usually hidden back behind. And let's see, those are up a little bit higher than, it's not at the bottom of it's not right in the middle, it's up a little bit on that eye. And this feels too wide open. Yeah, I'm too wide open. Even this one feels a little bit wide open. Once again, so where these are is where it's looking at you. So if she's looking at us, then that's where we're seeing this. And actually, this needs to come over just a tiny bit there. These are very, very important to get those pupils in the right place. Now she has a highlight here and this highlight's over there. Okay. And then her lashes come up and into here. So this is lashes up into there, and they're actually going to come up and above that a little bit. Now the eyes themselves are darker around the rim. She's got that highlight so it doesn't come the whole way. Let's get this pupil really dark. And so she has multicolored eyes. So there's light and dark areas in them. They're not all dark, like if she had, you know, dark brown eyes or black eyes. And then a little darker there, and then it's pretty light, so that's, and I'm going to have to come in with a softer pencil to do some of this. So this other eye, very dark here. We can't see into that color of her eyes very well here. This is mostly dark, so let me just go ahead and make it mostly dark. Okay, so before I do anything more, let's go ahead and get the rest of her features in. And so we have this comes up her ear. Her ear, top of her ear comes at about her eyebrow, but the, you know, sort of where the ear attaches to the head is hidden behind, it's hidden behind her hair. So that is a little tiny bit lower, but her ear itself, it's going to fit into what we've got here. And then it curves and goes back into there, and there's a little dark space there. Nice thing about this ear is that we don't have a whole lot of detail that we have to worry about. And then her hair is going to come in pretty close to here. And it comes down that earring. Have I got that ear low enough? No, it needs to come a little bit lower. Right across from that nose. And then her earring is below that. Okay. And which means this part, that's why that looked a little short, because it was. This part comes down here further. I got those eyes too big. It almost feels like it. They're a little narrower top to bottom. We keep seeing things to correct, and that's one reason why I don't want to get into the shading until I feel very comfortable that what I have going here is really the correct shape. Her face still feels a little fat to me, and I've got to think about why that's looking that way. Maybe this eye is still coming out here just a wee touch too far. Which means this one then is going to be a little too far as well. I'm going to need to stop and take a breather and put this up and look at it from a distance before I commit to it. There's something that I'm not happy with here, and I'm not positive yet what it is. I think this part of her mouth has to come out a little bit further. That helps some. Maybe the mouth, maybe I don't have this mouth up quite high enough. And then this is going to come curve and go up into there. There's something about the angle of the lips and the ends. They're going to make a difference between a face that's frowning or a face that's smiling. And so being able to see that and get that line is very important. Okay, we're going to stop for a few minutes. I might work on it a little bit with it not being on the camera and then explain to you what I did. I've gotten this drawing much closer. There's still a few more things that I need to do. I had thought that this eye needed to go up a little bit, and it did, but not quite that much. I've gotten my other little eraser now, and that's gonna, when I get shading, the shadings are other thing that's gonna give us the final bit of this. But some things that I did to this she was looking a little too fat through this part of her face. So I've moved it over. You can see where her earring is here. I've moved it over almost 1/4 of an inch in this part of the face and brought that in a little bit. And same with the upper part of her head. Her widest place is right through here on her cheeks. And then she narrows down some into the head. She narrows down some into the chin. And then I had her neck too wide and her shoulder too high. So I've brought that over a little bit here. Her nose, it wasn't coming down straight. It actually angles just a little bit. We can really see that when we put a pencil on it and compare it to the side of the page. So the nose angles quite a bit, and then it turns to here and then comes down and finds that mouth. So that's not on quite the same line. It's over just a little bit. So I had to do that, bring the nose over here, find this, and then her mouth is turned up a little bit on the one side, and there's a nice little curved line here, and then this lower part of the lip is relatively narrow and then angles back. So I had to change that and get that closer to the right size, and I'm probably still not quite right here. It should just be a little tiny bit bigger. And then this eye, been working with a B pencil just to get things in place. This eye should come across here relatively smooth, not poking up. And then I can see under the eyelid just a little bit, so there's a little bit of a line here. And then her lashes are going to come off of that. This part, the little part of her skin, there's a little more of an uplift right there, but when we go to shadow it, it's going to be smooth on this side of it. Okay, and then I've got a few lines in here from double checking. I was double checking to see where the corner of her hairline is, and if I take this line straight up from her eye, that's where it should be. So I had to double check that. And so I do these lines really lightly so that I can take them back out again if I don't like it afterwards. And I don't want to start shading until I know I've got this about right. I'm still feeling like her upper lip is just a bit fatter than it should be.
And now that I've got this eraser, and then that means that's just a tiny bit wide there. You know, it might be only the width of a pencil line that's going to make a difference between it looking right or not looking right. And so we're coming in here. There's a little bit of an indentation at her eyes, but not much. And then it comes out into there. This is a hard line right here, but then as it gets up into the hairline, that's going to become a soft line because the hair overlaps onto the skin. So when I get to doing shading, that's going to be an important part of that shading. And let's just get rid of some of that line. Okay, yeah, I got it close enough now to start doing the shading. I'm feeling much, much better about it. It's starting to get that sort of cute, quirky look on her face that she had. So many little tiny things. But if I don't get these correct before I start shading, then I'm going to be fighting with it the whole way. Because it's harder to get rid of things after I start shading than it is to have it correct now. So let's see, what have I got here? This is a 4B pencil. This one, I believe, is a 2B pencil. Let me start with the 2B, and then I can go even darker afterwards. So now, this is dark.
This whole side of the face, and let me just, the thing I like about this pencil is that you can really bring down the side of it and get a lot of shading going at once. So let's just go ahead and get a mid-tone put all through here. There's a highlight on her hair, so let's not cover that highlight.
Her ears are lighter down, so let's for the moment leave them out light, and I can darken them more later. And her hair comes down in between here, and all of this is a little bit dark. Some highlights in that eye, so I'm not going to cover everything in that eye with this mid-tone. Bring it right up and onto her nose where it is. And we're going to go back in and we're going to find the darker spaces once I've sort of established some mid-tone over here. And don't forget the value of an eraser if we get too dark to come back in with an eraser and darken some things down. That should move over here just a little bit. Now her jacket, her jacket actually came up there just a little bit more. Okay. And this shape of this, what is not working quite right here? I said it's sometimes just an eighth of an inch. It isn't very much that makes a difference between nice and icky. Working and not working. And her chin comes back here, and then the shadowing is back in here. The jacket is going to be shadowed, and then there's light parts to the jacket there. come in and start working this up more. And I'm going to soften the edge of that with my finger. I can also soften it with a smudge tool. I want that soft when it comes into there. And we're going to do some cross-hatching, which will smooth some of this out as well. I don't want to do too much of that until I start really getting the shading in here. Let me go into my little bit softer pencil here. Just going to come up. And, when you're doing shading, know that the harder you press, the darker it is. So if you want an area that's not quite so dark and you've got a soft pencil, just do it lightly. Follow the contours of what I'm seeing here. And I can always use my eraser to help me out if I get a little too dark somewhere.
And there's going to be some places where we have some pretty sharp little lines, and there's other places where we don't, where it's maybe a soft little line, like right there in that dark side. Now let's get this shading going across her eye here, and then it's darker here and out into that eye socket underneath of there, and then under her eye, and then there's a line that comes down that's part of her eyelashes. Her eyelashes are pretty dark right on that eye. This little space in around the eye, there's a little indentation, and then the eyeball is actually back in there. It's usually might be a place that's a little bit red because there's some blood vessels that are usually there. Where is this a little darker? This line comes down pretty dark. This line inside the eye, that's that little space that I was talking about, that it's the edge of the eyeball, but it tends to have not quite as deep of a place there, but we're seeing some light underneath of there, of the eyelid, and then just got just a little bit of eyelashes. This sprinkle comes down.
Okay, now I need to get her eyes as dark as they are. It's darker on the side. These eyes are going to be fun to paint because she's got beautiful light coming through those eyes. And it's dark. There's a little shadow that happens right next to there. And I probably shouldn't have drawn these irises so intensely, the pupils as intensely with my other pencil because it's hard to draw on top of that. Is it doing better? This is part of, and you know, when there's a smile, sometimes there's a little pinch that happens between the eyes. Sometimes there's a little opening of the eyes that makes that little smile happen. Very subtle little things. And she's had this word line for a lot of years. She works as support for teachers. She's part of why I've been able to do my online classes because she gave me some advice on how to get it set up, get it going. Because that's what she does for Stanford Business School these days. Of course, they've got a much more robust system to work with than I've got. So some of the things that she's able to do with them, we can't do for our classes. But she's as close to a daughter as I've got. Which makes it difficult to do her drawing, because when you know somebody so well and you're very close to them, it's sometimes difficult to see the details you need to see to actually do a painting or drawing of them. So I'm a little bit hesitant for that reason. I'm a little bit scared to do this drawing, but it's coming out pretty decent. Pretty decent. Okay, so just a little bit of shading there. Now let me come in with my eraser and see what we can do about erasing some of these things that we need to erase to really show some of the spaces. Go down just a little bit more there, and then this wraps around that nose. There's light on this side of her, but this comes over just, well, here we'll do that with the two rather than going into the, so dark that edge. That looks better. That looks better. This needs to come up and into her face just a little bit more to get that shape happening. We're going to paint this, we're going to have a dark midtone back here, which I haven't put in. Where else do I need to do this? A bit more of this needs to be light. Smudging with my finger rather than with my smudge tool. Just want to soften the edges of these things. This is right here. Darn. I think I got her nose just a hair long. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that hair isn't. The nose is just a hair long. Or I've got this lip a little too short. And which is it? Nose is a little long. Okay. Thank God for erasers. It's not very much. It's just a little tiny bit. But I can just sort of see as I'm filling this space in that that needs to go just a little tiny bit higher, which means the nose must be up here just a little bit. And there's not much dark that's visible there. It's a very small dark space. And then this is dark. Dark back there, and it comes dark in underneath it there to help show that. And then this is a little darker here, and maybe this comes out. Yeah, it comes out just a little bit more. Okay, and then the rest of this nose. So then, that nose still has to be up there. All the way up there. Okay. Light piece on the bottom of her nose there, and then this becomes dark all back in there. And then it's darker here. That light, this light, this dark. Did that do it? Did that make that look a little better? I think it did. Darn. Boy, it's hard to see all the little details. And this can go over here just a hair further. And it's going to be dark right into that little dimple. And take this up just a hair more. And then erase out that light at the edge of it.
I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here, but know that this is going to go darker back here. And it's going to be darker back in here. But the darkest, it's actually darkest right behind her face. So that's going to be a little darker on that side than, and I'm going to just now erase a little bit here of that line that I had right beside her.
The shape against her face is very important.